Thank you. I want to make sure Curtis is in the room. Yesterday, he used my name twice during his presentation, so I owe him two. But I don't see him, and that figures. So we're going to get started, and what we're going to do is have a little fireside chat. Abby and Andrew is going to walk through some slide presentations. I'm going to try and stay out of that so I don't mess anything up. And then we're going to have some questions that just a few that I'm going to give to Abby and Andrew to kind of promote, and also it's some of the questions that have kind of come across the email train since we've started this category 2 thing. If everybody knows what that is. So I'll hand it off to Abby and Andrew. Thank you.
All righty. Everybody hear me? Make sure the mic's on. All right. Let's get started. Talk a little bit about today's agenda. We're going to talk about the Inverter-Based Resource Initiative and some of the milestones related to the project that the ERO is working on. As we go through that, we're going to talk a few different things. We're going to then move into the work plan and give an update of where we stand. This is a project that actually spans the entire ERO. So the NERC and the regions as we're working on it and collaborating. We're going to talk about the RFI that we're sending out. Everyone's most interesting thing, but we've got a few of them to send out, and we'll talk about them and answer some questions people may have on what we're doing with that process and how it's going to work. I'll talk some about some future Category 2 IBR registration issues and outreach, how WECC is going to approach this once we identify and register some of the new facilities. We've got a great resource that we're trying to promote here. And what it is, this is a practice guide that NERC has published, is developed in coordination with the regions. And it's for the one we've got highlighted there, the application of registration criteria for Category 2 generator owners and operators. That was just published in, I believe, January. But if you're interested in that, it's got a lot of good information just on some of the different configurations we may see. So if you're curious how your assets may fit in, it's a very good resource to take a look at. And we'll talk a little bit about a few next steps. Okay, the first one is, well, why do you need to register? Other than FERC told us we have to. But beyond that, there's actually some pretty good reasons for this. When we look at this, and you'll begin to see some of the numbers throughout the process as we go through the presentation today, it really comes down to the transformation we're seeing across the grid. It's not new. We've been adding more solar and battery energy storage and wind assets for a long time. But the numbers are beginning to get to the point where it's important that we know everybody that's out there registered and can understand the risk that poses because the grid is changing. It's not the grid I grew up with in a 1,200 megawatt coal-fired power plant. It's different. We talk a little bit about who. As we do this, we're looking at, you've got some cases where you may have a solar plant that's been connected to the bulk electric system since 2012. That person's needs, they may have never interacted with WECC, with NERC. There was never a reason for them to be registered before. Now, based on a directive from FERC, we do need to register them. And it becomes important because they're going to have different questions for us that we understand who they are. But it also applies to brand new. So if people are building a new facility, you're building a new battery generator storage facility, you need to be registered. So again, so we're trying to understand the risk so we can take a holistic view of the risk and work do the best we can to mitigate it. Question of how are we going to do that? We get into an expanded registration process for these Category 2 GOs and GOPs. This is something that's going to be consistent across the entire ERO. The ORCG has worked to make sure all the regions are going to be doing the same process, working with NERC. So it shouldn't matter which region you're in, you should experience the same process. The timing may be different. We'll talk a little bit about that. Just that it really comes down to the fact that some regions may only have 40 or 50 new assets to register. WECC, we're looking at 323. It's going to have to be different. So we process things differently, and we're just trying to be as effective as we can. I talked a little bit about, you get into the why, the FERC order on registration. Really, you get into this, we've got 3 phases of what we're going to be doing. The first one, we had to make some modifications to NERC processes, our processes, the rules of procedure, definitions. Had to do all these things to make sure that it works. We can accomplish what FERC directed us to accomplish. That was completed. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the rule of procedure changes as we go through here. Next phase, and this is really where we are right now, is identifying all of the potential generator owners and operators that will be affected by this Category 2 designation. The real difference historically, your traditional generator owner, generator operator, most everybody in the room knows that, well, if you're connected to 100 kV or higher, you've got 75 MVA, you're going to be a generator owner. That'll become now a Category 1. The new piece is this Category 2 to draw in the rest of the people that FERC was interested and the regions to understand, so we have a better feel of the risk. And this is folks that are connected at 60 kV or higher, and the threshold is lower. It's down to 20 MVA. And it's important to understand that 20 MVA, it's an aggregation. It could be a single unit to a collector bus, or it could be multiple. You may have different facilities owned by different people. And it makes a difference because we have to look at the aggregation at the point of interconnection. So it's important to understand what's there. And as you get the RFI we're going to send out, one of the most important pieces is a one-line drawing. We need an accurate one-line drawing of the point of interconnection so we can understand it. The final phase is the actual registration. NERC and the regions have been collaborating to modify CORS, our primary tool for registering folks, to change it so it can accommodate these new definitions for what is a Category 2 or a GOP and a Category 1. As you look at this, it's been a bit of a challenge to make sure we get everything right and we think of all the potential combinations you could have. But what's going to happen, it won't take any action on any of the current owner's part to go from the standard generator owner, generator operator to become a Category 1. When the software is put into production, that will occur automatically, and all of your assets will be listed there. Any generation assets would be listed under that designation. Any new assets that we identify as Category 2, those will be brought in under this new criteria. We expect that to be able to begin occurring maybe late in the summer, early fall, as the software modifications are completed, fully tested, make sure that we're ready to work with everyone. But again, I'll go back to some of the configurations. It's important to understand how you're connected. So that's the thing we're going to probably ask the most questions about. You can also have a phased-in approach. You may have a project that comes in phases. It may start out and it's a Category 2, but then you may bring another phase in, it may change that. And so as you achieve each threshold, that's when we would work with you to ensure that you're registered properly. And that may change as you bring the entire project online. And as we heard yesterday, no good presentation is complete without a flow chart or a chart like this. So here's the registrations version of that. And again, it's just talking about this 3-part timeline that we're looking at. First one, completing the rule of procedure revisions. That's been accomplished. We're currently in the middle of identifying the candidates for registration. As I said earlier, we have, at last count, 323 potential facilities that we need to register. We've sent out over half of that 323, which may answer a question some people have. Well, hey, I'm in Texas or I'm in NPCC as well, and they sent them all on day one. It goes back to what I was saying with 323, we're taking a batched approach. We began sending our first batch in January, sending those out, requesting the RFI to be returned in 45 days. So we're working our way through that, and we're trying to do the best we can to group it. So if you own maybe 15 of these potentials, you get all of them at one time. So you're not going to get piecemeal, get one now, one in 2 months. So we're trying to make this a process that we can coordinate and work our way through, because it's a little bit of work to go through 323 of these, making sure we do the proper evaluations, get all the information we need. And so it's a carefully thought out process for how we're going to do that. And then the final one that I talked about a little bit earlier is hopefully later this fall, we'll have the software update in course, and we can then begin registering people. A key point there is we have to have everyone registered by May 15th of 2026. Yeah, that's our drop dead date. So that's another reason for the batched approach. We can start having these ready to go sooner and start working in batches and not have to do 323 on May 1st. That would not be any fun, at least from my opinion. I want to talk a little bit about some of the rules of procedure changes. And this one, what we're talking about is for the generator owner and generator operator, there had to be changes to account for this new category 2. This includes changes in Appendix 5B and also in the definitions in Appendix 2. These had to be completed so that we can have a consistent language when we work with industry to understand what we're doing. And FERC approved those changes in 2024. This is a little more detail on that. You begin to get into, I'm not going to read all these word for word, but we get into defining a category 1 and a category 2. I'm repeating some of these because I think it's important for folks to understand. The new category 2 is connected at 60 kV or higher and 20 MVA aggregated through a common collection system to a single point of interconnection. But again, I want to reinforce, there may be times you may have 2 assets into the same collector bus. We've also seen times where there may be 3 or 4 and they're owned by different people. We've got to look at all of those, understand that, because those other 3 may affect your registration. Because if they all aggregate and bring it over 20, we have to consider that.
Andrew, can I jump in?
Jump in, Mark.
So as Curtis pointed out to me, see, I got one down. So there's a change that I'm supposed to review the next 45 days or something, Curtis, on. Yeah, so the glossary of terms is going to change for the GOP and GO so that it should be matching this terms that is what you're going to find in Appendix 2A. So I just want to point that out, and that'll be voted on pretty soon.
Thank you, sir. All righty, we'll go. And again, it's kind of just a visual representation of that rather than reading all the words. But what we're looking at, what is a category 1 and what is a category 2? We've had a lot of interesting questions so far. And one of the challenges for us is we need to be able to make sure these things are clear for people that have been in the business for potentially 18 years, since 2007, to somebody who's just building a new facility. So at the risk of repeating, it's very important for folks to be able to understand that. And that's going to become important too as we do some outreach. WECC's going to take a holistic approach to this, where after we get you registered and we identify it, we're going to have outreach. We're going to work with different stakeholders, and it depends on what you're registered as. You may have these brand new people. I need to have a different presentation for them. They need to hear different things about who WECC is, what NERC is. They may or may not have ever dealt with it before. Compared to someone who's been a generator owner, has had a large fleet since 2007. Very different messages, and we want to make sure that things are appropriate. And you're going to hear from, it's not just going to be registration, it's going to be all of WECC that we look at and make sure that people understand who we are, what we do, and how to interact with us most effectively and how we can help. You know, because our goal Overall goal, improve the reliability and security of the bulk electric system. That's why we're doing this. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Abby. So thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Abby Fellinger, and I'm very excited to be here with y'all today to talk about Phase 2, identifying of Category 2 GEOs. So back in January of this year, the 6 regions got together and provided our updated numbers to NERC regarding the potential identified Category 2s, which I want to give a shout out again to our TOs and our BAs for providing that information. Having the assets and the contact information has been a great help to this project. So the current numbers that you see here, at least from a WECC perspective, as Andrew indicated, are still relevant. We're still looking, give or take, around 323 assets, and the MVA may fluctuate a little bit. But what we are currently seeing is, even though the numbers are staying the same, the actual assets are shifting just a little bit. So we're seeing situations where, you know, an asset that is being reported based on its aggregation with an existing asset, it will become a Category 1 versus being registered as a Category 2. We've also confirmed that some projects are kind of out there past the date of May 2026. So those are future projects that are not being considered in the Category 2 slot. We have a future projects category that we're starting to track currently. So we are seeing some moving parts change a little bit. So it is an interesting time. But thanks again for everybody's efforts for finding these assets and the future efforts in providing the information we need to register you. So we have been trying to communicate that this RFI is coming your way. For the last 2 months, we have put information in our weekly WECC newsletter. This specific article is going to go away soon, but the reason we did this in the language we did is we wanted to give everybody an opportunity to understand the documents that they need to start gathering, and that they'll have 45 days to return their evidence packages to us through our secure workspace. And I'm giving shout outs today. I do want to give a shout out to Travis and Maley for doing such a great job on putting that newsletter together and making it full of information, but also an easy read. So, yeah. So I do want to let everyone know that the regions are being consistent on how we're reaching out to you. So there is an RFI template that is being utilized, and we're requesting the exact same documentation. So if you're a Category 1, you should be familiar with the process. We're asking for your operational one-line agreements, your agreements that pertain to the interconnection, as well as operating and third-party agreements. We need to understand the nameplate rating, as well as the form that I love is the GOGOP asset verification spreadsheet. So as Andrew indicated, the project did start in December of 2024 as far as the regions reaching out to entities. However, WECC did start their RFIs in January of 2025. And we will be scheduling outreach as we identify these new entities. Okay. We do have an updated spreadsheet, and for y'all that have been around for a while, there have been various versions of the GOGOP asset spreadsheet. Probably the last 2 or 3 years ago, we actually created one that's for the EO enterprise. So I think the entities are probably enjoying having a one-stop shop where they only have to fill out one form. Recently, what we did add is the tab which is called 4B, Category 2 GOGOP assets. As far as the whole spreadsheet goes, there's roughly like 7 tabs, the first 4 tabs being related to reference materials. So they basically tell you how and when to use the form. For the 4A, that is your category 1 assets, and the 4B is your category 2 assets. The fields are almost identical. There's just like a couple slight changes. For category 2s, there's a couple exclusions, black start, your lead line, and I think one addition, which is your DP for entity mapping. So the form is laid out pretty well. They try to kind of put things in certain areas. So of course you have your entity information, your basic information, your relationships, as well as your registration effective date, which in many instances is your commercial operations date. And I do want to put a plug in. So currently with the RFI, we are asking for the form to be filled out for the category 2s. However, if you have a little spare time, we wouldn't turn it down if you would go ahead and fill out that GOGOP asset spreadsheet with your category 1s and your category 2s if you're an existing entity, and submit that in CORS and send us an email. That information would be very helpful. And so this is just a quick little timeline, if you will, or workflow. I know that the title here says category 1s and 2s, but this is really more for the category 2s. So currently, we are completing the evaluation based on the documentation that's provided in the RFI responses. And once we do have that information, the determination is being considered based on the reference documents that are shown below here. And as Andrew mentioned, that application of the registration criteria for category 2s, both GOs and GOPs, is very helpful, to NERC, the regions, and I think the entities. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please check out that document, as well as there's a recorded webinar that you could listen to. So again, once we complete our evaluation and determine that you are a category 2 or possibly not, WECC will be sending you a determination letter to let you know what we have determined. And there will also be an opportunity, like Andrew indicated, for outreach activities that will be specialized depending on your entity. And then we also included here, when the opportunity arises and we have the functionality in CORS for the new functions as a category 2 GO and a category 2 GOP, you'll be able to submit that application in CORS. The current link is available. It's more geared towards category 1s right now, of course, since the functionality is not there. But, as processes change, we'll definitely update our documents to support that. So once you do submit your application and you are registered, WECC will put you on the registry. And if you're not familiar with the NERC registry, you could click that little link and find out who's there. All right. So I think I've said CORS and not refer to the actual name of the registration tool, which, if you're not aware, is the Centralized Organization Registration ERO System. So thank goodness for acronyms. There's 2 modules within CORS. So you have the new registration request, and then you can make modifications to your existing registration. For the new registrations, it could be in one of 2 situations. So maybe you've never been registered and you're registering based on the criteria, or you're already a registered GOGOP, but based on your corporate structure, you decide to keep your assets separate. So you may be submitting new registration requests in that instance. So once you are on the registry, your responsibility is to maintain that registration record. So anytime you have any changes, as far as you need to make changes to your NA mapping, or if you're adding or removing an asset, it would be done in that module, as well as keeping your contacts up to date. All right. So I also wanted to provide a quick screenshot of what you do if you have a footprint change, which I know some of you guys do almost every day. So, you know, to get into CORS, regardless, you're going to need to sign into the ERO portal. And then you're going to access your specific record that pertains to that asset change. And currently, most of the functionality has to be done through the comments and attachments section. So there you'll have plenty of room to describe what the changes to your registration, as well as upload the documents needed to support that change. And in most cases, you should be able to do a zip file. Once in a while, we have problems with the limitation of the documents, but most of the time you could get that information in there. And then we do not receive notifications, so we would appreciate an email guiding us to CORS. All right. Now I just kind of wanted to go over resources that are available to you. On the left side here, of course, we kind of have them sectioned off. There is a WECC IBR registration initiative page. It's basically just a bulletin that we try to keep up to date with the latest links and information that you'll need. And then the NERC registration page, you can get to a lot of information from there. But I want to give a big plug to the quick reference guide. That is something that is kept up to date every month, and a really good resource to keep at your fingertips. From an onboarding perspective, for humans, I would say the informational package and the checklists are definitely items to keep handy. If you have a new generator, that onboarding package is a great tool, which will be updated to address Category 2s in the future. Right now, we keep a lot of good information on the entity registration page for WECC. The brown items there are actual links to guidance documents, and we are going to be making some changes to the links here in the near future. One specifically is that generator, the registration questionnaire, that is going away. But it will be replaced with a registration form. So just to give you a quick update on that. All right, so as far as the key message, I'm just gonna go with the bullet here, and that's just make sure y'all understand that there's no reliability standards that are gonna be applicable until you're registered in May of 2026. And of course, there'll be implementation plans as well. All right, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, my favorite time. So we're going to throw a couple of questions at Abby and Andrew. First one is going to go to Abby. I have 3 Category 2 assets in 3 different states in the West. When can I expect to be registered, and do I need separate registrations?
All right. I may have to bow out in a minute, but I'll try.
Okay, you want me to do it?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So all 3 of us have been fighting something, so we don't, sorry about that. So WECC and the other 5 regions will be working with NERC to begin registering entities as Category 2, GO and GOPs beginning in May 2025 through May 2026. The regions will reach out to the entities with guidance on if they will be registered as a Category 2, as we discussed earlier. However, the registration and compliance dates will not be effective, of course, like Abby said, until May 15th, 2026. There will also be implementation plans along with those standards. If there are multiple assets, they don't need to be registered under separate NERC NCR ID registrations. In fact, we encourage entities to consolidate all of their generation assets under one NCR ID, regardless if they are Category 1 or Category 2 assets. However, we do understand that some corporate structures are set up where they may not be possible to consolidate all assets within one NCRID. Okay. You all right? So, Andrew, when will WECC contact me? I have assets in other regions and those regions have already contacted me.
All righty. For that one, we talked a little bit about it before, but the real answer is we're batching them out. So we're trying to group all the assets from any particular entity at a single time. We started in January and we're halfway through. We expect to have them all out reasonably soon. But it will be soon would probably be the best answer for that. You're going to be, we want to get them out so you have time to gather the information and for us to have the opportunity to properly evaluate, ask you any questions. But some of the regions were different. If you only have 40 of these, that can equate to one of our batches, and they sent them all out at once, if you remember the slide Abby had. So,
Okay, thank you. So Abby, I'll continue on. Yeah, okay. If I have a project that will be implemented in 4 stages, with the first 2 stages totaling less than 70 MVA, and the second stage not being completed for 7 months after, with a total of 40 MVA, do I need to register the first stage as category 2? If so, will I need to register as a category 1 once the second phase goes into effect? So the simple answer is yes and yes. So once you have a phase that meets the registration criteria as category 2, you will need to register as a cat 2. As facilities get added, those additions need to be communicated to your registration department, and the registration could shift and reclassify to a category 1. And that is in the NERC implementation plan with the diagrams that was recently published 1st of January, I think. So, let's see. Andrew, if a facility is determined to be category 2 and the facility is already operating, what will our effective registration date be? When will my compliance obligations begin?
okay, that's a good question because we talked about a little bit. The effective registration date for everyone that's a category 2, whether you came online in 2012 or 13, or we just are identifying you now and you're coming online December 1st. The date of registration for everyone will be May 15th, 2026. And so that will be your date of registration. Your compliance obligations would begin then. The key there's still some standards and requirements that are under development being updated, and there may be implementation plans. So there may be some to be into the future. It'll be per the effective date of the standard and of any implementation plans that may be related.
Thanks, sir. And this is the last one. If a GO is ready to register, but a GOP is not, should they wait to register until both the GO and GOP can demonstrate compliance? So it's really, as we do Cat 1s, those are who are familiar with that process. But when you register as a GO, you will have to have and tell us who your GOP is. So basically that GOP is going to be registering at the same time or very soon thereafter. I think we had a couple more.
We have his contacts.
Oh,
Yep.
yes. These are the regional contacts that are put out by the communication department from NERC. So if you're interested in needing to get hold of one of those other groups in the other regions, you can just click on those or email those. And oh, you put my email address on there. So as you can see, we have contacts, and we did include Stacia Karen, who is in the room. She's going to raise her hand up. Thank you, Stacia. So pod 3, low risk, is that right? And so we are working very closely with Stacia's group. As a matter of fact, We have, 4 folks. Abby and Andrew, are looking at the information you send back. And along with 2 auditors, they're taking a look at all the information that comes in. We are doing this from a holistic WECC approach, and that is, we like to share the wealth. Registration loves to share the wealth. So, I think that's, about all I have. Curtis, I know you want to ask a question. Nope. Okay, that's my 2. I got 2 curses. So I think we're finished. If anybody'd like to ask any questions. Uh-oh, we have somebody up. On deck.
Yeah, hi there. Marty Hostler with NCPA. So I like the last part, what you said, and that's what caught my ear. We don't own any renewables or any of these non-BES assets, but we do marketing functions for them. And you mentioned you're going to ask who the GOP is. We are not any of these guys, any GOPs for a lot of these functions. We do bidding for them in the Cal ISO market. And I have a feeling that they're going to start putting our name as their GOP, even though we're not. So are you going to let us know who's, I mean, in a timely fashion, who's?
But you're talking about a market function though, right?
Yeah, we have a market function, but they might, some of these people, this is all new to them, right?
Yeah.
Because they're just now getting registered. So.
Yes.
And so we want to know, we need to know up front because it's not in any of our contracts that we're their GOP for non-BES assets.
We validate. every
Okay.
GOP. So we're gonna knock on your door, we're gonna call you up and ask if you're the GOP. Because
Okay.
you need to be identified and if you're not registered as the GOP, you'll need to register as GOP for that GO.
Oh, we're not going to register as the GOP unless we get a new contract from them. We need to be getting a new contract because we didn't sign up to be their GOP for any of these IBR assets.
That's
We
fair.
signed
will
up
ask.
to bid them and schedule them in the ISO market. That's it.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Hey, Mark.
No, wait a minute, Chris, you don't get.
I don't
Go
get
ahead,
one?
Chris.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
So I want to kind of elaborate on the Cat 1 or the facility that we know is going to be a Cat 1, but it's coming in phases. So if we do a phase that goes over 20, we need to register as a Cat 2 first?
We're gonna need to talk about that, okay? So, yes, you need to
Can't wait.
contact us and we need to understand because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Abby or Andrew, in the registration procedure, it talks about phased in approach. So you need to let us know about the phased in approach in the first place. So then we need to understand if you're gonna have, it's kind of like the COD. If you're gonna have 25 MVA for a year, yes, you're gonna register as a CAT too. But if you're gonna have 25 for MVA for a month, then, we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
And that really hasn't come up at a NERC level either, so
I
we're kind of kicking that.
I was hoping you would say we could talk about it or negotiate because,
No. I didn't
generally when
say
we
negotiate.
generally when we plan,
Yeah.
we plan the compliance activities as we're rolling towards COD. And this is kind of going to have to make us behave differently and then we were normally behaving, but we all know it's going to be a category 1. So it just seems onerous on us to have to change so much when we already know and have a process that takes us to category 1 without this stuff. So.
And like I said, we're gonna have to evaluate, and that's why we try to stay on top of what your CODs are, because we don't want you running at COD for 6 to 8 months. And, you're phasing in a project and you're at 74.5, so it's, that's why we want to keep track of all of it.
Okay.
So we'll have that conversation. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm currently going through Icon R5 from CERC on this. So a couple notes from that. So our cores is updated, however, it didn't go to our primary compliance contact at all. It went to someone who hadn't been in the company for years. So I don't know. So we had to somehow get it back to us. So if there's a way that if you don't receive a response from the R5, if there's a way that you guys can then check in cores and get it to the correct person, because in our case, it didn't actually ever end up making it our way, and then we got it some roundabout way, and a lot of time had already passed. So it'd be great if like we could do that check in course to confirm. And then additionally, our RFI didn't list what sites you guys, or it wasn't you guys, it was CERC. The RFI was coming for. And so when we received it, we started trying to gear up and get our documentation ready for a site. And it wasn't until we called up the regional entity that we found out that they actually were planning for a site that was like a year out of COD. So we actually got a bit of a difference response from CERC. They said to follow the same process that we use for category 1 and our scope expansion. If we do have a site that is like a year or so out. So we would just, once we get close to that COD, that 90-day timeline, we would then go ahead and follow that same asset, like category 1 process that we follow with our asset list.
So, like I said a minute ago, we haven't really flushed that out at the NERC level. And that's what, I'm the co-chair of the ORCG, so I will take that back to that region and we'll have that conversation. Because if you're gonna go a year at 20 MVA or more, 25 MVA, and then add to it, if I understand, is that what you're saying?
No, our COD is a year out. So
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so if you're COD, yeah. Yeah, we wanna keep track of that. We do at WECC. Maybe I misunderstood?
So our COD is a year out. We received the RFI right now for it.
And it's a category 2?
It's category 2.
Okay, all right.
We're told by CERC, like, if it's a year out, don't worry, like, once you get close to like that 90 days.
Oh, yeah, okay, I misunderstood. So, yes, the normal NERC policy is, or in the registration procedure, is notify your region 45 days out. We've gone, even with Cat 1s, we want to know 60 days out because the amount of Cat 1s, Cat 2s that we're getting. So, yeah, thank you. Sorry for the misunderstanding.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify on Chris's question. So earlier we said that if they are at 20 MVA and greater than 60 kV, that they would have to register as Cat 2. And then if they increase based on their phased-in approach, that they would move to a Category 1. Is that still the correct answer? I just want to make sure because I thought I heard something. I just want to make sure.
No, that's the correct answer,
Okay.
but what he was saying was if it's a phased-in facility, Chris, did I get that correct? Phased-in facility, that's gonna go from 20 MVA, 25 MVA to 80. Yeah, then, yeah, okay. Yeah, basically, yeah, got it. Uh-oh.
Hi. Christina Hannum with NACE. Question actually kind of for Chris. Are you talking a phased-in approach or a block turnover? Because those are two very different terms. And they could alter it because that phased-in approach may not be COD and does not match the rules of procedure. Phased-in approach or block turnover? Because phased-in approach could be that you have an existing facility that's 20, that's currently done, it's COD, it's putting out, but you're going to add to it, right? That, I believe, is what we're talking to over here, but if it's block turnover, I believe it to be a little bit different. I just wanted to kind of add to the
All right,
discussion.
so that's a new term for me. We've not been approached with a block, are you calling it block turnover? So, the way I understood Chris's question is the 20 MVA may be currently being almost ready to go online? Or they put it online, but there's a phased in approach of they're gonna add 75 more in the next 6 months. for the next 75. Yeah, so
Can we either talk on the mic or take this offline?
yeah, let's take this offline because I think there's a little confusion there. And it may be on my part. Yeah.
Tim Kelly from SMUD. I understand it's WEC's goal to do some sort of outreach to newly registered entities within 60 days.
90.
90, okay, thank you. If it's not too far to think about it, do you guys plan on doing some sort of outreach after the May 15th, 2026 date with all of those category 2 entities?
So are you trying, so I guess what I'm gonna ask, so what we're setting up right now is a scheduled monthly outreach starting next month. And that will go all the way through to May 15, 2026. So as your information comes back in and we complete the analysis, you'll go in a monthly bucket to have outreach that is in within 90 days of our completing that analysis. Now, that there should be at a NERC level outreach because now we're going to be talking about the standards and requirements, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what you're kind of headed toward.
Yeah, but okay, that communication will help. So maybe I didn't hear that before, but that's a great plan.
Yeah, because I mean, registration's kind of completed because, some of these that we understand, you're going to have an effective date of May 15, 2026. And then some of these standards and requirements are going to go in effect and there may have an implementation plan of 12 months. We don't know that yet. So yeah, I would say there's going to be outreach for that. Are you looking for some other outreach other than that?
No, I think that was the one I was thinking of. I didn't think you guys wanted to wait until next year and do all 320.
Oh, no. No, we're going to have a phased in approach for all the Cat 2s within 90 days. And our new scorecard goal that you might be aware of as well is within WECC is that any Cat 1 will have outreach within 90 to 120 days.
Okay.
Stacia, did I say that right?
When we're talking about this outreach, it will be very, very fundamental.
Yep.
Because these are the entities that we haven't interacted with at all as WECC. So it will be very, very foundational. And then we're hoping to grow and build on the outreach concepts as we get closer to that May 2026 date.
We kind of have to tailor it as we created a workflow process and looked at our scorecard for WECC and said, okay, Cat 1s, Cat 2s, but Cat 2s with an entity that's already registered, and then Cat 2s that have never been associated with WECC or NERC. So it's kind of a tailored outreach for each one of those.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
And I will suggest that it's a good idea to maybe provide some feedback to the TO, TOPs, PCs, BAs, just to, I don't know, let them know this entity is registered. I think it would help just close that loop.
Yeah,
So, okay.
agreed.
Hey, Mark and team, Srinivas Kapagantula from Arivan Energy. We're one of the recipients of your RFI, so we're working through that. But quick question, based on just the last discussion. Technically, could there be a point in time after May 15, 2026, where some of these entities are registered as Cat 2, but do not have any standards to comply with based on implementation plans?
At all?
Yeah, because we don't, if the standards come with their own implementation plans or whatever, and they say, hey, you've got 12 months from May 15, 2026 to comply with it. Technically, we're registered now, right? Because by May 15, 2026, everybody will be. That's the goal. at least.
That will be your effective registration date.
Right. but do you have to comply with any standards on that date, or does that depend on each individual standard?
I can't answer that. I don't.
Okay, no worries, but bring it up in your discussions with
Yeah.
whoever the powers are, so that way, that would help.
I mean, the standards are being changed
Yep.
to accommodate the GOPs, and some of them will have implementation plans, but we don't know what those are yet.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, sorry. Christine again with NACE. I chair the drafting team for the GO-GOP definition. It will be part of the implementation plan, and there will be 8 standards that you need to comply with.
Okay, thank you. Guess I better bone up on the standards, huh?
All right, we do have some online questions. Will the bulk electric system definition be revised to include Cat 1 and Cat 2 generation assets?
So it's my understanding that the BES definition falls under NERC standards group. So there would have to be the process the same as a standard to change that. So I'm not aware at this point in time of any changes to the BES definition.
Thank you. What does WECC consider a footprint change? Does WECC have unique guidance for a footprint change, or does it just defer to the ROP criteria?
It's the ROP criteria and Appendix 5A. And, we use that term a little loosely at times, or loose. And that is, we talk about footprint changes within registration, but registration is also registration certification. And there are specific certification review footprint changes that happen that you have to notify us. For instance, if you're building a new substation, replacing your EMS, metered boundary changes. So you can find those in 5A, I think, as was mentioned.
Are entities in Canada affected by Cat 2 requirements as well?
No.
During the outreach, will the team discuss all applicable standards to Category 2?
During the outreach?
Yes.
For WECC outreach, we're, as Stacia said, this is a basic outreach, and there won't be any standards and requirements discussed. It will be who WECC is, what WECC does in all areas. And Stacia, are you looking to want to just add to this? So go right ahead.
Yeah, so, and to clarify, so there will be multiple outreach that we give, and that also that NERC will give
Yeah.
gearing up to this May date. So the outreach that we're planning on giving to entities within 90 days, that outreach, it's WECC foundational information. But as soon as we have a better grasp of what standards these entities will be applicable to and the implementation guidance that go along with those standards, we'll be able to give better technical outreach of what entities need to do exactly to get ready for this date. So it will be these will be baby steps, and we'll have more information as we get closer to that May date, but we want to make sure that we're providing entities with as much information as we can, as soon as we can.
Okay, we have one final question. You mentioned that with different phases for a project, meeting different limits, having to register as a Cat 2, are you saying that if the phase project has not reached COD, you still have to register as a Cat 2 with test power?
No. So the test power, you can still do the test power. But once you reach a COD, we have cases that are right now we're looking at that have 20 MVA now, but and they will reach COD soon. So they will register as a Category 2, and then 8 months from now, 9 months, they'll be up above for the BES for category 1. Would you all like that? The last NERC, yeah, so if you, yeah, that's a good point, Abby, thank you. The last NERC webinar, which was March 3rd, address those situations as well.
Okay, great. We had another question come in. When would GAD's requirement apply to category 2?
Oh, we had that question, didn't we? Not till after registration.
Okay, that's it from me. Thank you.
All right, we're down to 2 minutes and 55. Hey, Tom, I didn't get a 5-minute notification. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus.
Hey, Mark, can I throw one more thing in?
Yeah, go ahead. You're on.
One of the reasons we put the contacts out here is we know there's going to be a lot of questions. Please reach out to any of us on the team. We will get back to you. We'd much rather talk about these things up front and get an answer for you than run into challenges later.
Yeah, and I want to include Sarah Mitchell, who's on our team as well. She couldn't be here, but I think she's in virtually, and Sarah's a great asset to our team. The whole team is wonderful. So it's not me, they are. So that's it. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.